Yes, guys, what's happening? And welcome back to the channel. Welcome to this afternoon's live stream. And there is plenty to get into in today's show. Sterling's been announced. Koulibaly, done deal. Moving fast with Kimpembe, deal in place for Ake as well. Tuchel said no to Cristiano Ronaldo. There's so much to get stuck into. George, it's great to be here as always, mate. Streamed yesterday, but I didn't get your thoughts on it. Kalidou Koulibaly is a done deal. From Napoli to Chelsea, 40 million euros will be the deal. He's got signed a 4-year contract with an option for a 5th year. I think this is a phenomenal signing for Kalidou Koulibaly. Fabrizio Romano confirming that paperwork has been signed between Chelsea and Napoli for Koulibaly. Deal 40 million euros, all completed. He will sign in the morning, then will fly to Los Angeles. Koulibaly will be unveiled as Chelsea's second signing very soon. This is a great signing, really impressed by it, and how quickly we've moved as well. As soon as it seemed like the Ligt, it wasn't possible, it was too much money, he preferred Bayern, we just moved on, got this Koulibaly deal done so quickly, and what a signing it is. George, what are your thoughts on this one? I actually prefer this one to the Ligt anyway.
Yeah, mate, I love this one. I think Koulibaly has been someone that we've always been interested in. I think the only question mark is perhaps the deal has come a little bit too late, because we've been interested in him for years, and he's now at that age where we're going to have two very senior centre-halves potentially starting at the club. But take that away, he's an unbelievable centre-half. Deserves a challenge in one of the toughest leagues, which is going to be his toughest challenge of his career. There's no doubt about that. I think, attributes-wise, is incredibly fast. Great power. Big as well. He's a big bloke. This is a great deal for Chelsea. I think, we were very, very worried about the cover at the back. I think Tuchel came out with the comments saying, look, it's no secret that we need reinforcements at the back after losing two quite first team squad players in Christensen and Rudiger, and I'm delighted this is over the line. And I can't wait for this. Silva and Koulibaly, what a powerhouse duo that is.
It's great, and as you say, mate, it replaces some much needed experience that's gone out in Rudiger. Even Christensen at 25, 26, still very experienced. It looks like they're going to be losing experience in Azpilicueta and Alonso as well. So it's so important to replace some of that with Koulibaly. Yes, he's 31 years of age, but to be honest, he's still got 3-4 years ahead of him. And for one of the best centre-backs in Europe, to get him for 40 million euros and for him to be playing for us for at least the next 4 or 5 seasons, it is phenomenal business. Before we get back to Koulibaly, mate, just on the business in general, we're not used to this as Chelsea fans. Normally, we're used to us being slow, kind of haggling, pissing about over a few mil here or there, either way. Under Boehly, it seems to be very refreshing that, he just comes in, he's working round the clock. He's making an effort to jet off and meet all relevant people. So meeting with George Mendes, one of the most prominent agents in the game. He's going out, he's meeting with Barcelona. He's establishing relationships with key clubs in the game, with key personnel within the game. And, we've had it from Leeds, we've had it from people at City saying that, he's a pleasure to deal with. Just how impressed have you been with how Todd Boehly's gone about the business since he came in? Because, as I say, mate, we're not used to this. We're used to Chelsea kind of fucking about in the transfer market. But Boehly's come in, he means business, and he won't be pissed about. If the price is not right or he thinks the player's not coming, that's it. He moves straight on to the next target.
Yeah, and it's optimistic. You could... the issue you've got with new owners come in is it is difficult to sometimes sell players the dream, because you're in a bit of a dark situation. Players don't know where they stand. Chelsea in a bit of a transitional period. Can we match the ambitions of the teams above us? What direction are we going? And it's going to be a completely new direction, with new ownership. And, he's taken that upon himself to go out, as you said, meet the players, sell them the Chelsea vision going forward. And the great thing about this is that those high-profile players are buying into it. Sterling is a fantastic signing. A proper Premier League, ready-to-go winner. He's a winner. Koulibaly, another one that a lot of clubs looked at. Napoli probably outpriced him on various windows. But again, senior professional, plays at the highest level. And it's, some clubs are still struggling to get deals over the line. You only have to look at Manchester United with the same kind of thing happening there, but with management. Can Ten Hag sell Manchester United the dream to new players coming in? It's becoming a challenge. But for Chelsea, to bring in those players will only work and act as a stepping stone for future world-class talent to come in and join the party. So I think he's done brilliantly.
I'm muted. Sorry. In terms of Koulibaly himself, 31 years of age. He's coming in on a 4 years contract with an option for a fifth. I mean, how pleased are you, firstly, mate, to see Chelsea do away with this policy of as soon as a player turns 30, no matter who they are, it's only a 1 year rolling contract. I mean, I'm delighted to see that go because it's just so annoying and I think unnecessary as well. How pleased are you to see that policy be ditched?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of got it at the start, when they first the proposal for it, but then you look at some of the top athletes in all sports now, and age is no limit, is it really? You only have to look at, say, tennis, for example, that the top three are still dominating at the age they are. And it's the same in football. I mean, Thiago Silva, defying all logic. Yes, you've obviously got those, it's intense, and if they get injuries, it's going to take them longer to recover. But, the experience that they offer in the dressing room, they're so fit in football these days. I mean, ridiculously levels that, you just wouldn't, age just doesn't come into it. I mean, these guys, Thiago Silva's far older than me, for example, but I bet he can run around a lot better than I can. So it just shows, I mean, we've got so many things now in the modern game with the scientists, the physiologists, all that, the biomechanics, everything. So I think it's great that it's been ditched. And, I think you can play for as much higher level than, say, 20 years ago, when maybe 30 was the decline. Sometimes in these cases now could be where you actually get better in your career.
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure, mate. I think he's definitely got some top years of football against him. Obviously, Koulibaly has very much been a one-club man, spending pretty much the whole of his career so far at Napoli. George, how do you see him settling in, mate? In terms of adapting to the Premier League, we've seen him. He's got the capabilities. He's a very good defender. We've seen him in Serie A. We've seen him for Senegal. Obviously, most recently winning the African Cup of Nations. He's got a good relationship with Edouard Mendy, obviously the Chelsea goalkeeper from their international commitments together. It's still going to take a little bit of time to adapt, but how do you expect him to fit in? He's played in a 4 at Napoli, can obviously play in a 3. He's right-footed, but very much plays as a left centre-back. Where do you see him fitting in, and how do you see him adjusting? Because it will take a little bit of adjustment.
Yes, it is going to be tough. The transition, I mean, first of all, the intensity and the pace of the game is going to be a lot faster. So he's going to have to be on it. And I would expect mistakes are made, and that's understandable. We've had it with Rudiger. Wasn't exactly a finished article when he joined Chelsea. I mean, we had problems with him potentially being the player that he actually turned out to be, which we've only started to see in the last year or so. So it does take time. I think it will be tough. The intensity of the competitions itself as well. You're playing 3-4 times a week sometimes, and particularly with Chelsea looking to compete on all fronts, it's going to be hard. I'd expect him to be a starter alongside Thiago Silva, but again, is probably Koulibaly, but is Thiago Silva going to play every game? So then he has to look at partnership options, and it is going to take time to adjust to what Tuchel wants to do. And obviously, we still don't know what the formation is going to be, so we don't know what the expectations are. But I'm sure Tuchel has had a conversation with him already. But no, mate, I have no doubts that he'll add. And if anything, he's actually, I wouldn't say he's an improvement on Rudiger, that's yet to be seen, but certainly, above Christensen. So if you're looking at the players we've got now, I think that's a fantastic centre-half partnership if it comes off.
Yeah, no, it's definitely great, and I can't wait to see him in a Chelsea shirt. As I said, it should be unveiled. I mean, unlikely to be today. I'd expect at the earliest it'll be unveiled tomorrow. Whether he'll play any part in Saturday's first pre-season game is probably unlikely. Possibly more likely to take part in Monday's game, I believe, is the next pre-season match after that. But George, sticking with defenders, mate, let's go with Presnel Kimpembe. As soon as the Koulibaly stuff was kind of announced yesterday, Chelsea was straight in onto the next one. And Presnel Kimpembe, the PSG centre-half. Let me have a quick look now. Where is it? This one here. Nizar Kinsella at the Standard saying that Kimpembe is conflicted on his future. He loves PSG, but Chelsea is the only club he'd consider leaving for. Thiago Silva and Kante have spoken to him about moving to Stamford Bridge. I mean, George, we don't mess about at the moment, do we? As soon as Koulibaly's done, we're on to the next one. Presnel Kimpembe. Now, I remember in previous streams gone by, mate, you've been quite discouraging about Kimpembe. I'm not gonna throw you under the bus here, but you've not been most complimentary about him. So What are your thoughts on this now? That it appears that Kimpembe is very much the next one in line that Thomas Tuchel wants to bring in. Obviously, he's got a relationship with him from PSG during their time there. He's a World Cup winner with France. Mate, what do you make of this? Do you think it's a good move? Do you think it's needed, first of all?
The difficulty you've got now is trying to manage the players' expectations. I mean, where does he fit in? I mean, does that then
play? I imagine he'd play left centre back, mate. I imagine it would be Koulibaly on the right side.
Well, it depends. We're going to have three again.
I think this is very much indicating if we're bringing three centre backs in, you're going to be playing three at the back. I don't think they're going to bring three centre backs in to play a back four.
No, well, in that case, I think you could argue that it's another good addition to the squad. I mean, I'm not a fan of his. I've got to be honest, and I'm sure there's plenty of people that disagree. But I don't know. I mean, I've always said it. I think until you've really tested yourself in the Premier League, I don't think you can be considered world class, other than the exception of maybe Messi and some other players, maybe someone like a Benzema. But even that, I still don't think those players would do as well in the Premier League as what they do at other clubs. So I always question a player who decides PSG as an option for me, character-wise, just because
I think he came through the academy.
Yeah, so which in that scenario, I think that's acceptable, and I think Thomas Tuchel obviously has a relationship with him. And bottom line, I'm a fan. At the end of the day, I've got actual in terms of actual education, there's zero. So I think if Tuchel likes him, then who am I to say that he's not a good fit for Chelsea? If Tuchel believes he is, then I'm backing the manager 100%.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, here saying Santi JFM, who's quite reasonably reliable. Thomas Tuchel spoke with President Kimpembe recently over the phone to present him with the Chelsea project and his plans for him. He feels extremely well in Paris, but if he leaves PSG, he prioritises a move to England. I mean, George, the fee reportedly for this one is around the £50 million mark. I think Chelsea are looking at around 42 million plus 8 million in add-ons. I mean, £50 million, I guess, seems to be kind of the going rate these days for players, doesn't it? It just seems to be the way it goes. But, I mean, do you think he's needed another one, like another centre-back? Are you surprised that it appears that we're going to be bringing in three centre-halves rather than two? Because I think three's quite a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, but we probably do need it. Just looking at options, let's say, and we probably know for a fact that Thiago Silva's not going to play every game.
No,
he's going to be conditioned to play those big games. Probably a Premier League regular, but you're looking at the other cup competitions, he'll be rested. Koulibaly, I mean, he's not young, but I'm sure he would be a starter in there. And then you're looking around, thinking, well, we did trial playing Asby as a kind of right side of a centre three, and then you're looking at players like Malang Sarr, who, okay, he had moments where he was impressive, but then other moments where he was dreadful. So yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, look, I would be very happy if it was Kimpembe and Nathan Ake. I think I'd be more than happy. And we've still got a lot of outs to go, haven't we? We still don't know the future of other defenders. So I think maybe he's just trying to cover all bases.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. I mean, I expect this deal to get done. Tuchel wants him. PSG are open to him moving. It appears that kind of, Chelsea would be the club that he'd be prepared to leave PSG for. We've got his, obviously, former teammate Thiago Silva in his ear, his French teammate N'Golo Kante having a word as well. I expect this deal to probably happen. And yeah, I mean, by all accounts, you'd expect it to be a Koulibaly, Thiago Silva and Presnel Kimpembe first choice back three. I mean, George, providing that does happen, what are your thoughts on that potentially being Chelsea's kind of starting back three or strongest back three?
I think you could argue that it's probably stronger in many ways.
Decent, isn't it? Yeah.
It's not bad. I mean, obviously on the premise that they all play well, which is never a given, and it will take time. There will be mistakes. There will be chopping and changing. There'll probably be some surprises as well with selection. I mean, we were all surprised that Alonso kicked off the way he did at the start of the season, where he actually started in front of Chilwell. We'll probably, I know Chilwell's coming back, but there may be some surprises. I know James could probably play somewhere else across that line if needed as well. So we'll see. I mean, if everyone's fit, they play well. That is a naughty back line, I've got to say.
Mate, it certainly is. I mean, in terms of the money, mate, do you think that's extortionate to pay for Kimpembe? I mean, he's a French international. I think he's only maybe 25 or 26, so he's at a good age. There probably is resale value there as well if we decided in 4 or 5 years to sell him on. And do you just think that's kind of the going rate these days in the market? You know, if you want a pretty decent centre half, you're going to have to spend that sort of money, and that's just the way the game is.
I don't think it's unreasonable, that figure, to be honest with you. I mean, if you're looking at the other option, which was De Ligt, for, you know, that would have been
70 or 80, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's actually good business. I think anything in that 40, 50 million pound bracket, particularly like as you alluded to there, is age. I think that's, you know, it's got some resale value if we decide that he's good and we don't need him. I think actually that's pretty good business.
And in terms of someone we've already spoken about before as well, mate, whilst we're on defenders, is Nathan Ake. That, I know we've spoken about him before, mate, but that appears to be moving ever closer now. Nizar Kinsella again reporting that Chelsea have agreed a deal in principle to sign Nathan Ake for around £45 million, but are waiting for City to sign a replacement before they give Ake the green light to leave. Now, this is one that kind of divides a lot of Chelsea fans. I think personally, from my opinion, from my perspective, it's the fact that he came through the academy. We used to have him, we sold him, we had an option, and then we're buying him back. I think that's a lot of people's gripes of it, and the fact that it's not particularly a big name. But George, if you put those things aside, I mean, all right, wouldn't be my first choice, but Ake's versatile. He can play left side, can play centre back as well. I mean, £45 million is a lot of money for someone like him, who's essentially a squad player at Manchester City. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Because it looks like this is very much going to happen. But I don't know how I feel about it. I'm not dead against it, but I just think £45 million is a lot of money for him. And if Kimpembe comes as well, Ake is very much going to be a rotational player.
And that's where I'm struggling with Ake's desire, because I think any ambition of perhaps getting a first team place at City now is all but over. But then why he's then decided that Chelsea's the next best move when you look at the players that we're signing and the players that are supposedly arriving in Kimpembe and Koulibaly, don't see where he fits in other than a squad player. Now, it's all good for Chelsea because, you know, I think if we want to challenge for the league and close the gap, which we certainly do, you have to have strength in numbers. And this certainly ticks that box. But again, not sure how he fits in on a regular basis. Again, like I said, a few moments ago, he might surprise a few people and might actually start brighter than some of the defenders that we've been talking about. Who knows? Because of that fact that he's played Premier League football and he's been in the Premier League regularly. But mate, I like him. I think he's a good footballer. Like you said, I think the key for that is that he's versatile. And with the injuries that we had last season, he would have been an ideal replacement in some of those games. And look, if you're looking at, League Cup or an odd game in Christmas where we're struggling for fitness, you see Nathan Ake on the sheet and you're not thinking, oh, we're in trouble, really, are you?
Yeah, no, mate, I'd certainly agree on that. But yeah, I mean, I still think even if Kimpembe comes as well, he probably won't be first choice, but he'll still get a lot of minutes. It's going to be a lot of rotation. There's 5 subs in the Premier League next season now. Plus the fact that we're going to be playing probably at least 55, 60 odd games. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be suspensions. He'll definitely get a lot more minutes at Chelsea than he would have done at Manchester City. That's for certain. Let me just get to a few bits in the chat. Thoughts on Michy's Chelsea future? I strongly believe he can play a part next season. I would respectfully disagree with that. I mean, Michy's just here for the vibes, I think, in pre-season. He's here for a little holiday. There's no way he's in the plans. I don't know who's going to buy him permanently. He'll probably go out on another loan there. So yeah, thoughts on Michy's future is that there is no future for Michy at Chelsea. So that's my opinion on that. Texas Blue, big up, bro. If it's either or, would you take Ake or Kimpembe? It's difficult. I'd probably say I'd take Kimpembe just because he is a better player. But then on the flip side, Ake is versatile and he's Premier League proven already as well. So I'm not sure, but I probably would just take Kimpembe. George, are you taking out of those two?
Probably Kimpembe, just for the fact that we're trying to come away from re-signing old players. Didn't work the first time, so I think I'd rather try something new, perhaps.
For sure. And this is a fair point from RD as well. Kimpembe starts with PSG, Koulibaly starts with Napoli, both around £40 million. Then Ake's 45 mil, and he's a 4th choice at City. That's
Yeah,
kind
that's
of that.
true.
That's kind of that Premier League tax, I suppose, isn't it? Selling to a
Yeah.
rival is always going to bump the price up a little bit. I guarantee if like a foreign club was buying Ake, they'd probably be happy to get rid for 30, 35 mil. But that's kind of that's sort of just the way it goes. But George, the signing of kind of Ake, Kimpembe and stuff brought up a bit of a storm on the timeline last night on Twitter in terms of kind of Levi Colwill, who is obviously 19-year-old centre-back, exciting prospect that's come through the academy. He's been on loan at Huddersfield last season. A lot of people not happy that it's potentially going to lead to him leaving the club or blocking his path to the first team in the future. I mean, George, where do you stand on this? Because, you know, a lot of people are massive fans of the academy. I am as well, but I think people need to realise that not every single player that comes through the academy is going to be good enough to play for Chelsea. That's just the way it goes. You know, they will force, if they're good enough, they'll force their way in. But, you know, in terms of Colwill, George, you know, we've got him here. He's 19 years of age. I didn't watch an awful lot of him last season. I mean, what are your thoughts on kind of Chelsea as a club and kind of pathways for academy guys looking to make it into the first team? Because I think from Colwell's perspective, he'll be looking at it and thinking, right, I'm 19, I've had a great season on loan. You know, I'm a good prospect. But then you look at, in my position, they're signing Koulibaly, Ake and Kimpembe. Where does that leave? Where does that leave me? And then I look at the likes of Tomori leaving for AC Milan, Mark Guehi going to Crystal Palace, even Tammy Abraham going off to Roma. You're looking at it and you're thinking, well, I can leave and go and have, you know, regular football elsewhere and have an instant impact. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? I mean, what do you try and do to keep these academy guys here? Because they're not demanding instant minutes, but they kind of want reassurances, and it's quite hard to give that, particularly at a club like Chelsea, where, you know, the pressure's so big. You need instant success almost. You haven't really got the time to be like, oh yeah, we'll just play a young guy in for a few weeks and see what happens. It's a difficult balance to strike.
I just honestly don't think you can have both. As much as an idyllic fan scenario, you want your youth team being the first team in 20 years and winning the league, like back in the Fergie days, the class of '92. It's very difficult. You know, we set extremely high standards, as do those sort of so-called big six clubs. Chelsea even more so. And as much as we all go on about, you know, oh, we'd love to see Gallagher, Mount and Gilmore be the midfield three, and we'd love to see Tammy up front, an all-English team. And yeah, dream scenario, okay, fine. But realistically, you're not going to be able to keep up with the big boys like City, who are spending, you know, X amount of money on the next big striker by playing youth teams. So you either have to resign to the fact that you want to take a youth team approach and end up not winning a lot of stuff, but progressing them and giving them those minutes and keeping them, or you decide to get what's an instant success and buying ready-made players, or do what Chelsea do, which is integrate both. Now, we might have done that by chance with the transfer ban a few years back, but it has. I think you're right, mate. I think deep down, you know, you only have to speak to people like John Terry, who say, you know, who worked incredibly hard when there were a lot of internationals at the club. You know, Frank Leboeuf and Desai in his position. And if you are good enough, you will get to the top. You just have to take those chances when they come. And Chelsea as a club will make mistakes. We have done. I'm not saying that Kevin De Bruyne and stuff were youth players, but were players that weren't in the squad. We let them go. But what's wrong with that? As a youth player, if you go to another club and do well, you've still got a great career. It doesn't have to be at Chelsea. And you've got to accept the fact that you're going to make mistakes and players are going to get better away from Chelsea. But are we really complaining with the amount of success we've had? Probably not.
No, I agree on that. But do you think there's an argument to be made that, you know, like just using these guys as squad players rather than potentially, you know, looking at a Nathan Ake, which is going to cost us best part of 45, 50 million pounds? Could we not just use a guy that we've already got on our books that's not costing anything and that can sort of fill in and do a job? It is a tough balancing act to find, and it is hard to, you know, give these guys assurances of how many minutes they are going to get, because at Chelsea you just don't know. You know, you need proven quality straight away. You know, we need Premier League ready centre backs. We need Champions League quality centre backs from the off. Yeah, okay, these guys could play a Carabao Cup game here and there and maybe get a few minutes in the league, but, you know, we can't promise these guys what they want, and that's just the way it goes. And, you know, 19 years of age for me, Colwill, you know, you're going to have next season Koulibaly and Thiago Silva there. Even if you ended up playing 10, 15 games and learning from those guys in training every day, you know, exactly. It's not necessarily sacrificing a season. You know, you're 19, you know, that could be so beneficial. And then, For me, Colwill, there's still a path into the first team for him. Thiago Silva, this will probably be his last season. There's still opportunities there. He'll probably be ahead of Malang Sarr in the squad. There's options there. So for me personally, I either think Colwill should stick about or he should go and get some Premier League minutes and on loan somewhere else. But ultimately, the decision is down to him.
And and the other thing that people don't take into consideration is times have changed. Back in the day, I think you would have had long-lasting managers who had been given that long-term vision to be able to see out that plan. I honestly don't think Tuchel, if he can't take the risk because he can't afford to. If he starts playing these youth team players as an experiment and thinks they can handle it and they don't, and we don't get the results, he's out the door within literally maybe a 10-game bad spell where there's 30 days. He could bring in those players, and there's so many demands, to get that. You must get in the top four if you're Chelsea Football Club, for the financial, things that you get from it. And for his job alone, I just don't know. I think we still do a mix. I mean, we saw it, in the FA Cup. We still saw players play. I think we saw Lewis Hall play at left back, who was very, very good.
We've seen Harvey Vale play. We've seen Simmons play.
Harvey Vale.
Yeah.
But I think the days have gone where you can really, just play those guys in big matches. I hope they prove me wrong, but I just think, some managers have only literally got, 10 bad games and they're out the door. And, they've got to play their best team. And that doesn't mean that I think for the youth team players, like you said, it's not just on Saturday on at 3 o'clock kickoff that they'll learn these things. It's all around the training ground, the habits, what they do on and off the pitch. And that's beneficial and it's worth staying around for.
Yeah, for sure. Colwill himself he's got a high ceiling. He's definitely got potential, but he's never played a single minute of Premier League football. So this idea that, I'm seeing that certain fans are thinking that, he's ready. He might be, but the fact of the matter is he's not played a single minute of Premier League football. He even needs to learn and play his way in, having a few games, or go out on loan to a Premier League club, whether it's a newly promoted side or a team kind of in the bottom half, and just go and play, learn the league, and do what you need to do. But at the end of the day, mate, he's not asking for regular playing time this. He's asking for kind of clarity on what his role is this season and what his role would be going forward, which I think as a player is the right thing to do. You'd be concerned if guys weren't asking about what the plans are for their future, because you've got decisions to make. And as I said, the examples of Livramento, Guehi, Tamori and stuff, he'll see that you can leave Chelsea and go and have a very good career elsewhere. But yeah, people just need to realise that not every single player from the academy is going to make the cut in the first team. That's just the way it goes. The role of the academy is twofold. It's to produce players for the first team, but it's also to raise money as well through sales. You can produce some very good footballers that can make you a lot of money and have good careers, but might not quite be good enough for Chelsea. And that's just the way it is. But yeah, Colwill remains to be seen what happens with his future. I'd personally either keep him as a rotational option or send him on loan. But if we do sell him, just make sure there's a reasonable buyback clause in there so that we can get him back if necessary. But George, moving away from defence, the Cristiano Ronaldo to Chelsea dream is over. It is not happening. Thomas Tuchel has, where is it here? Let me just quickly find it. I think this is it here. Yeah. Matt Law reporting today that Tuchel has said no to Cristiano Ronaldo. He's understood to want the focus to be on the team rather than an individual, and has therefore backed away from Ronaldo. It would have also taken attention off the signing of Raheem Sterling, who is seen as a marquee signing. George, your thoughts on the fact that Tuchel's kind of squashed that Ronaldo transfer, doesn't want him, wants to focus on the team rather than the individual? I mean, apart from sort of the glamour, and if you kind of, pull the wool off your eyes sort of thing, it was never really going to work, was it? It's probably best for Chelsea that this move hasn't happened.
Yeah. I mean, fair play for Tuchel for standing by his principles. He's obviously assessed the situation and thought, actually, for his coaching philosophy, he's decided he doesn't fit the mould. And you have to be quite bold to say no to Ronaldo, because it would have been quite tempting at the price that it was being offered. Decision, I don't know. You could still argue that Cristiano Ronaldo still scored a lot of goals for Manchester United last season, in big moments as well, particularly in the group stage of the Champions League. He's still one of the most prolific goal scorers around. In terms of a professional marquee signing, it ticks a box. My biggest concern was that he said that, Sterling was his number one target, which he was quoted on saying. But then where does that leave bringing in a striker? It probably looks now as if he's resigned to the fact of trying again with the players in that front three that we have, the likes of Kai Havertz, Timo Werner again, Pulisic, Sterling, Mount, seeing if we can get slightly higher numbers from them this year, which is fine. That's fair enough, because considering they've all had a bit of under par season last year, maybe from the exception of Havertz, who had a bit of a purple patch. So again, even with Sterling, I'm still concerned about the target person who's going to score double digits comes from, which is my biggest worry now that he thinks that we've got our marquee signing over the line.
Yeah, I mean, Tuchel saying in an interview that at the moment the priority is to bring defenders in, but don't say no to another attacker coming in. It's still a possibility, but obviously it's not the priority right now. I think it's right. Yes, we'd have loved Ronaldo. Would have loved to have had a Ronaldo shirt hanging up behind me with like a Chelsea shirt with him on the back. It would be great. But if you actually think about it practically, it's very short-termist. It's a complete lack of a plan. It doesn't really suggest where you're going. So I think, for the sake of the team, I think it's the right thing to do to kind of not bring him in as much as it would have been great. I think it would have just upset the balance, and I just think it would have taken us down a direction where we're kind of looking like we don't really know what we're looking for. And we're just kind of kicking the problem 12 months down the line, really. But yeah, it's a shame it's not going to happen. It remains to be seen where Ronaldo's going to go. He's obviously not gone on the preseason tour of Man United. PSG apparently have turned down a chance to sign him. So I'm not really sure where he's going to end up if he wants to be playing that Champions League football next season. But George, in terms of attackers, though, you mentioned it there. Sterling's come in. Obviously, Lukaku's gone out. Ziyech is probably going to go out. There's a chance that, if we can find any takers, Timo Werner will leave, even just to get his 275k a week wages off the books. That would be ideal. I mean, mate, how would you feel about going into next season if it happens with having added just Sterling to the attacking options that we've got? Because it would require Tuchel to get a massive improvement out of the current crop of stars, which hasn't looked like happening at all since he's been there.
Well, that's the biggest question, isn't it? Can he get an improvement? Not necessarily performances, because I thought they put in some good shifts, but results. I mean, numbers. I'm talking assists and goals. I mean, we've got to be more clinical next year. I have every faith that those players that we've got are capable of that. But that's the big question, isn't it? I mean, there's no guarantee bringing in another striker. Let's say Lewandowski as an example. No guarantee that he's going to come and do any better. There was promise, like I said, with that purple patch with Havertz playing as a 9. There was. It's just whether it's consistent enough, and is it as good as what Liverpool and City have got? And those are the two sides we're chasing. You'd probably say no, still, even with Sterling as the addition. Sterling could completely transform it with his numbers. I don't know. And the good thing about Chelsea is that a lot of players, we've got competition for places in those front three areas, and it's very interchangeable, which I like. But it is still a concern of mine, mate. I think obviously the target man thing with Lukaku didn't work, but I would argue that he probably wasn't the right profile of player for Chelsea. I don't know who's out there that's available, so I think Thomas Tuchel might just go with that again.
Yeah, I have to say I would be concerned if we went just with that again. It would be relying on Sterling to come in and hit the ground running. It would rely on Mount to have another phenomenal season again, try and improve on what he had. And it would rely on the likes of your Kai Havertz's, your Pulisic, your Callum Hudson-Odoi, etc., to have a massive step up, which they just haven't looked like doing in the last couple of years. So I would feel a little bit worried. I mean, George, just on terms of potential incomings in that area, there is interest in Chelsea are interested in Serge Gnabry from Bayern Munich. Last year, his contract, according to Fabrizio Romano, though, his priority is to remain at Munich, and is to sign that contract extension. I think if Lewandowski leaves, he'll sort of take that main slot in the squad there and have a more prominent role. Is Serge Gnabry someone you like? Is it someone you think could fit in at Chelsea, or do you think it's very much a case of kind of his agent and immediate stuff using Chelsea to try and get him a better deal at Bayern, get him a bit more leverage? Because I think Serge Gnabry would be a great signing. 26 years of age, got Champions League experience, German international. There's not much to not like about it. I mean, how would you see him fitting in? Because I think that would be another good piece of business. And he's only cost about 34, 35 million pounds, which for someone of his quality is cheap.
Yeah, I mean, I like the signing. I think he could be a good addition to the squad. And as you said earlier, when we're looking at Hakim Ziyech and Timo Werner potentially going the other way, I think we do need to look at reinforcements perhaps in those areas. Again, I still want that number 9-ish type of player. I don't know whether they're going to come in, but I would probably expect Gnabry to sign that extension at Bayern. I think from what I've read, he's more inclined to do that and wants to stay. That's his prerogative. So this might be a bit of, like you said, a bit of noise to kind of bump up a bit of leverage for him to get a big money move. But he's again, he's a good player. He'll be a good addition. But we've got players that are very similar. Yes, they haven't hit the ground running, but I don't know. I'm tempted to probably stay away from that one.
Yeah, you wouldn't be a fan of that. Guys in the chat, let us know what your thoughts would be on Serge Gnabry. I mean, I would do a poll, but I don't know how to work out to put it in there. So yeah, guys, just let us know your thoughts in the chat if you'd be happy for Serge Gnabry to be signed or not. And whilst we're at it, guys, please make sure you do smash a like on the stream and please do subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate all of your support. We are 15 away from the 800 mark now. So if you're watching us now, guys, and you're tuned in and you haven't subscribed, please do click that subscribe button. Let's try and hit that 800 mark before the end of this stream, if possible. George, though, I mean, there doesn't seem to be that many other links. I mean, Rafael Leao from AC Milan, a very exciting player, had a great season last season as Milan won the Scudetto over in Italy. His contract runs out in 2024. Talks of around 100 million euros. Is very expensive. There could be room to negotiate on that price. Is he? How much do you know about him, firstly, and is that someone that would excite? Because I think that's a great signing, very raw, loads of potential. But again, AC Milan would be hard to do business with. Potentially, we could maybe involve Hakim Ziyech in some sort of deal as well, seeing as Milan want him. I mean, is that someone that would excite you, Leao? Because I think that's one that would definitely excite me.
Yeah, I love the player. Do know quite a lot about him actually, but probably from just playing FIFA and having a AC Milan career mode, which probably isn't the best resource.
Which you got sacked from.
But he was a shining light in that sacking. I'll add. He's a class player. I'd expect him to be going places in the next couple of years. I don't think he'll go to Chelsea, but there's a reason why he's got a high price tag, and AC Milan winning their first Scudetto in how many years, and he was again the catalyst for that. So I think it was at least 8-9 years, could be more. So for him, I think he's got a big move ahead of him in the next couple of years.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely over Gnabry, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd take Leao over Gnabry as well. But I mean, other than those two, mate, it very much doesn't seem to be that many other names out there doing the rounds in terms of wide players we're linked with. Don't get me wrong, some names could just come out of the blue if you just wake up in the next few days and suddenly, bang, Chelsea have put in a bid for so-and-so, which we weren't really expecting at all. But George, if it's not one of Gnabry or Rafael Leao, it very much looks like it's just going to be the same crop that we've got, which, as we've discussed, is a little bit of a concern going in, given the fact that these guys haven't really shown like they're capable of delivering, really. But I mean, yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens in the attacking phase. I mean, just one last thing, George, on wing backs as well. Matt Law's article today saying that Chelsea are looking for cover at right wing back for Reece James. I mean, how important is it that area of the squad is addressed for you as well, considering we saw how much football Reece James missed last season and how crucial the wing backs are to this system of play. We're very much relying on them to contribute a lot to the attacking phase. How important is it that we get cover in that position as well?
Yeah, and we need someone like for like with James. He's obviously not going to be as prolific or as good, but I think we need someone who plays a similar style, because when we lose James and Chilwell, you can see how impacted we are. I mean, it pretty much blew up any title chance we had. I think Alonso did a really good job, but certainly on the other side we lacked, and that's where we kind of the wheels came off a little bit, because we just didn't have someone attacking that right-hand side like Reece James does. I mean, so we need someone similar who can deliver balls into the box, bomb forward, maybe his defending not being the priority, someone of that ilk. Don't know who's out there who could fit that mould and is happy to sit on the bench. That's a harder question to answer, but I just think you need those like-for-like players, because last season was just impossible to replace James with those long-term and Chilwell with those long-term injuries. So we need to look out.
No, we can't have another season of Azpilicueta with his legs falling up and down that right wing, but that can't happen. But just a few names. Obviously, we've been linked with Jonathan Klaus from Lens in Liga, who I think he was the top goals and assists contributor from wing back in Europe's top 5 leagues last season. Be very cheap. He's 30 years of age, a French international. He cost about 10 million euros, so £8 million. But apparently, he's in advanced talks with Marseille. So I'm not sure if Chelsea have dropped the ball on that one. And a couple from the Bundesliga as well. Hoffmann, the German international, I think actually scored against England in the recent Nations League fixtures. And also David Raum as well, I think, at Hoffenheim. I mean, George, I don't know how much you know about these players, but I mean, do you think the likes of someone like Hoffmann could do a decent job?
Yeah, out of the 3, I know Hoffmann. I think he'd be a really nice player to get. Very good player. Good on the ball and likes to get forward as well, as we've seen. Likes to get in the opposition's final third in the box. And I think that's the type of right back we want, who's a bit more penetrating of the channels and puts defending as a secondary task to be able to fill. So I think someone with a bit more pace, a bit more energy. Azpilicueta, very, very experienced and versatile. But like we said, mate, we lose so much width and ability to get it into the final third with someone who's a bit less aggressive in that final third. So for me, Hoffmann would be a very, very sensible buy for me.
Yeah, no, he certainly would be, and we definitely need cover in those areas. For sure. As we saw last season, it really bit us in the arse not having the relevant cover in those areas, and you could almost argue the wheels kind of basically started to fall off when Chilwell and James were both out. I mean, George, in terms of outgoings though as well, I mean, the squad's massively bloated. Yes, it's really exciting to see players coming in. That's what we all love. But if we're being totally honest with ourselves, there's way too many players on the books at the club, not just in terms of the wage bill as well, but just the squad in general. I mean, are you concerned that no players have gone out yet? There's futures of Azpilicueta and Alonso still aren't sorted out. They both want to leave. We've still got the likes of Bakayoko, Ross Barkley, Michy Batshuayi on the books. We need to get rid of Hakim Ziyech and Timo Werner. There's a lot of players that we need to move out the door, and some that are going to be tricky to get out given the wages that they're on. I mean, are you concerned at all about there not being any outgoings whatsoever?
I'm not. I wouldn't say concerned's the right word, but I'm surprised. I generally, with the amount of noise that was coming out of Stamford Bridge towards the end of last season about Alonso and Azpilicueta, and they've got they want different ventures. I thought pretty much as soon as the season's over, they'll be out. But it's looking for suitors, finding the right price, and also, like you said, you still don't want to strengthen your rivals. And with players of those profiles, it's difficult, isn't it? Because you're going to have to give it to someone who's also in the kind of top half of European football. So it's not easy. I mean, even if you give Alonso and Azpilicueta, let's say, to Barcelona, it still does make Barcelona a little bit stronger. And you don't really want that when you're competing in the Champions League with these types of teams. So it's challenging. Everyone knows now it's harder to get rid of players than it is to buy them in. And I was just surprised. I was expecting more to kind of go straight away, but it can only be a benefit to us other than financially. I think we've got lots of players to choose from. So as far as I'm concerned, I think it's a good problem to have. Yeah,
there are obviously a lot of players to choose from for sure, but I mean, I feel we're going to struggle to get rid of some of these players. Unless we either terminate their contracts or take a massive hit, we're going to struggle to move these on. I mean, George, by all accounts, Timo Werner's surplus to requirements. The club want to move him on. Who on earth is going to take Timo Werner for 275k a week? Even if he took a pay cut, even at 200k, no one's going to take him. I mean, how difficult is he going to be to move off the books? Because we kind of fucked ourselves here by tying ourselves into a long-term deal with Werner on ridiculous wages that, let's be honest, no other club in European football is paying those wages for Werner.
Yeah, it's a prime example of how difficult it can be because, it's clear after a couple of years that he is surplus to requirements from a Chelsea point of view, and trying to find a suitable buyer for a price that Werner's going to accept to move on rather than sitting on his contract is a difficult situation to be in. That all comes down to the character and the individual himself. Would he rather play first team football somewhere else and take a pay cut, or would he rather just sit on the bench at Chelsea and be happy to collect his 200 and whatever it is bags a week? Then it comes down to character. And if I was Werner, I'd be looking for a club and playing first team football. But doesn't always suit everybody. Maybe he feels like he's still got something to offer Chelsea. Maybe Tuchel believes that he can still offer something within the squad. And there's always that hope that these players that we bought for it amount of money a couple of years ago will come good. So is there an issue with having them for another season and giving them options? I don't know. It's a difficult one to weigh up.
Well, mate, how would you feel if Werner was here next season, mate? You know, he hasn't shown anything to suggest that there's going to be any improvement whatsoever. It'd just be much of the same again. I just can't see if he stayed how there's going to be any sort of improvement whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't know. I've tried. You know, I've been a real advocate of Timo Werner, as you know, and as the channel knows. But it's wearing thin now. There's very little evidence in my corner to support him staying on.
Mate, you're going to that evidence folder and it's empty.
Yeah, I'm turning up to court and I'm literally on it.
Mate, the prosecution having you silly, mate. Your evidence folder's empty.
It's got from opening statement to being like basically saying no comment.
Yeah, mate, that's a no comment that when asked for evidence on any potential for Timo Werner at Chelsea. It's just not happening. But maybe the best solution could be some sort of loan deal, even if we're part paying his wages. Let me just get to this in the chat very quickly. Nico, big up. Thoughts on Leao? So you must have missed that bit when we talked about him. Yeah, very exciting player. Raw. He's got great ability. This summer, I think it's going to be tough. I think it'll be a lot of money. However, his contract running out in 2024. Next summer, if he doesn't sign a new deal, with 1 year left on his contract, he'll command a much lesser fee. 1 more year of experience. He'll have Champions League experience as well, because Milan will be in the Champions League. Maybe next summer this still happens, but I wouldn't completely rule it out this summer. The way Chelsea are moving, the way Boehly's operating, never say never to any of these signings. George, I just wanted to round out with one more player. Player's already on the books, Callum Hudson-Odoi. 20, mad to think he's still only 21 years of age. Feels like he's been around forever. How big is this season for him? You can see from the pictures and pre-season training that he's obviously bulked up in the gym a little bit, put some muscle on. And he was injured a lot last season. Had quite a nasty Achilles injury to do with his nerves as well, not really being able to feel his foot, etc. Mate, how big a season is this for him? This is massive for him now. I mean, you almost get to the point where you feel it could be make or break this season for his Chelsea career.
Yeah, I personally think he needs a loan move. I think he needs to play regular football now. Yeah, as much as I think he's incredibly talented and he has potential to be a Chelsea first team player at some point in his career, I think playing bits and bobs and coming in and out and trying to, expect him to be the finished article every time he plays and deliver is just not going to happen. I think Sterling's now pushed his place further down the line. Potentially with Ziyech and Werner leaving, if they do, that may bump him up slightly. But I think if you're Callum Hudson-Odoi, you've got years and years in front of you. I think just go out there, play a similar level. I'm sure a Premier League suitor will 100%, want to take him on and just go and play and show what you can do on a regular basis. I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Mate, you could definitely learn a lot from Raheem Sterling as well. I think that could be very beneficial for him as well. I'm not saying that Hudson-Odoi is going to be as good as Sterling, but, he could be aspiring to be on that sort of level. And, to learn from Raheem Sterling, there's not many better to learn from, in that situation. There really isn't. So, yeah, I mean, it's certainly going to be interesting in the attacking options on the pitch. It's a massive opportunity. If no one else comes in, it's a huge opportunity for Callum Hudson-Odoi next season to try and make a mark. I mean, George, first game of pre-season to round out is this Saturday. What are you expecting to see? Just, one team for the first half, one team for the second half, just players getting minutes, maybe trying different formations each half. I guess pre-season, it's not about results, just trying a few things tactically and just getting minutes under the belt, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, we touched on this last time. I don't really think much in pre-season. But for people who say pre-season's irrelevant, it is to a degree, maybe results-wise. But, it stems, you can get confidence, you can build momentum, you can work out tactical things that you want to change. For some people, some players who can maybe get on the score sheet, it is quite beneficial. But obviously the most important things are we're injury-free, everyone gets their minutes, and I'm not really fussed on results or who I see. I'm expecting to see a wide array of players playing in for Saturday's game, and just looking forward to Chelsea kind of kicking off the pre-season tour, and hopefully it's a good one.
Mate, are there any players you're particularly looking forward to seeing at all? Obviously, Sterling's the obvious one. Whether he'll play or not remains to be seen. But some of the returning guys, I mean, I'm excited to see Conor Gallagher, excited to see Ampadu as well. I don't know if Chilwell's going to play at all, but that'd be exciting to see him.
Sterling definitely. Chilwell was definitely one. I'm not sure about Broja. I would like to see.
I think Broja will play some part. He flew out with Sterling a few days ago, so I imagine he's done a bit of training. He should play some part as well.
If he does well, I think Tuchel might take him as an option to be a backup number 9, which would be really promising. And I really hope he does well in pre-season. I'd like.
Do you think he's good enough to have a space in the squad this season? Because he went on loan to Southampton. He scored 8 Premier League goals. We could get about £30 million for him. Playing for Southampton and playing for Chelsea, 2 totally different things. I mean, stating the obvious, but the amount of opportunities you get, the way opponents play against Chelsea compared to how they play against Southampton is totally different. You might get less chances, or you've got to be a lot more clinical. Do you think there's a space for him in the squad potentially? I mean, how would you feel about having Kai Havertz and Broja as kind of the main centre forward options next season? It doesn't fill me with the utmost confidence, if I'm being totally honest.
Well, no, it's not screaming title winners, is it? But
no,
I think there's evidence to suggest that Tuchel does think he has a place, because he's looking at him in pre-season and made that very obvious that he would get an opportunity. So it's all about taking opportunities, mate. You can be the most gifted player, he could be the most complete striker, but Chelsea, like you said, is a different kettle of fish. He's got to not only play well but deliver results. He's got to pretty much play 8 out of 10, score goals in pre-season to have any chance of Tuchel being convinced that he's part of the squad, because it's so high in demand for numbers and competition for places. But also interested to see how Kai Havertz and where he plays. Whether he's going to carry on that number 9 role or whether he's going to drop back a little. There's just so many players that I'm just interested to see if they kick on a bit. Christian Pulisic's list goes on and on and on. But for me, the top 3 would be Sterling, Chilwell, because of his return, and possibly Broja.
Yeah, I mean, just out of the lads that are coming back, your likes of your Gallaghers, your Brojers, etc. I mean, who do you think's got the biggest chance of kind of breaking through and establishing themselves in the squad this season, out of the likes of Ampadu, Colwill, Broja, Gallagher? I mean, for me, I'd probably say Gallagher's got the best chance of being part of the squad. Would you see it the same way?
I think so. I think it's naive to say anyone else, really, because the fact that he scored, I think it was 8 or 9 Premier League goals for Palace. It's a difficult area, but it's also an area that you could argue that Chelsea, there are competitions for places. I think Jorginho's not getting any younger. Very defensive player. Kante probably past his best. I mean, still provides unbelievable performances, but could argue he's coming towards the end of his Chelsea career. So Gallagher's definitely got an opportunity there. Again, it's a really difficult one for him personally. Does he want to stick out and become another? He could easily become another Danny Drinkwater if he decides Chelsea's his future. Or he could go somewhere that I'm sure lots of Premier League clubs are ready to push the button on him. I really hope he decides to stay at Chelsea and give it at least a year, and we can bed him in. But again,
I mean,
is Gallagher going to start?
He's still only 20 years of age, though. Like, there's
I know. Yeah,
I mean, I'd be annoyed if we sold him. If he went on another loan, I don't think that would be bad. But I don't know what's better than Crystal Palace on loan. I mean, is Everton a better loan than Crystal Palace? I think it's probably much of the same at the moment. Everton are shitter than Palace right now.
West Ham or something like that.
Maybe. I think he's got the most potential, though, for sure. But the midfield is obviously, it is stacked. We don't really know how they're going to line up in that area. Last thing, mate, how disappointing, well, not this, I don't know if disappointing is the right word, but how much of a blow is it? Maybe not so much for Kante, but particularly for Loftus-Cheek, mate, that obviously due to their vaccination status, they've not been able to fly out to the States for the pre-season tour. We know Tuchel likes Kante, a massive fan of his. Obviously, they'll be back at Cobham doing bits and whatnot. I think they're going to take part in a friendly against Boreham Wood at some point, maybe next week or over the weekend or whatever. But particularly for Ruben, George, it's a big blow not to be out on this pre-season tour, isn't it? Integrating with the squad further, because last season was kind of a bit of a breakthrough for him, but he's very much fighting for his future at Chelsea, isn't it? And to miss this pre-season tour, It's unfortunate, isn't it? And he's only going to realistically, they're going to have the Udinese game in Italy. Other than that, mate, maybe a few behind closed doors games, but they're not going to be very well prepared come the start of the season in terms of minutes under the belt.
Yeah, he's had a very unfortunate kind of series of circumstances, hasn't he? You have to feel for Loftus-Cheek, particularly with a long-term injury, then coming back, not going pre-season. I mean, the one thing you want to do in pre-season as any footballer, not that I have any experience of that, but
got loads under your belt, mate. Loads of pre-seasons, yeah.
yeah. But probably the one thing I'll rephrase it. I'll say, if you were a footballer, I suppose the one thing you want to do is impress the manager, and therefore you want to be in his eyes all the time. So as much as Tuchel will respect the fact that he can't go, and that I'm sure he likes him as a player, and that won't change because managers are quite stubborn. They will, they'll come in with an idea, and if they like or dislike a player, it's very difficult to change their minds on that. But player, you probably just want to be in his eyes and show him what you can do, and to not be in and around the squad competing. It must hurt inside. It must kill him. So I feel for him.
Yeah, no, I do as well. Let me just get to this last thing, then we'll move on. Apparently, Gnabry doesn't want to come. I don't know how true that is, Nico. The fact of the matter is Chelsea have a firm interest in him. His priority is to obviously stay at Bayern Munich and sign the extension. But I think, if Chelsea pushed hard enough, then we could definitely get the deal done. But yeah, guys, that seems like a good place to round out. Thank you so much for tuning in, as always. Thanks for getting involved in the chat. Really appreciate it. Please do make sure you smash that like button on the way out, and please do click that subscribe button on your way out as well. We are hurtling towards 800 subscribers very fast. Hopefully we can get there by the end of this stream. So if you're watching now, you're not subscribed, please do on the way out, click that subscribe button, and hopefully we'll bring up the 800. There's lots to look forward to. Exciting times at Chelsea, Sterling and Koulibaly are in the door. Kimpembe and Ake could be next. Maybe a wing-back option coming in. The pre-season starting underway. First game Saturday. Lots to look forward to, guys. But yeah, thanks for tuning in as always. George, thanks for your time, mate. Really appreciate it as always. And guys, we'll be back in the next couple of days or so discussing the first pre-season games and any further transfer news. But until then, guys, take care, up the Chelsea, and smash that subscribe button on the way out.